Last night I had a crazy dream. Wish was granted just for me. It could be for anything. I didn't ask for money or a mansion in Malibu. I simply wished for one more day with you. One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. Leave me wishing still for one more day with you. First thing I do is pray for time to crawl. Unplug the telephone and leave the TV on. I hold you every second, say a million I love yous. That's what I do with one more day with you. One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. Leave me wishing still for one more day with you. One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. Leave me wishing still for one more day with you. Leave me wishing still for one more day with you. Leave me wishing still for one more day with you. Oh, one more day, one more time.
Amen. Good morning. My name is Pastor Stephanie Hayes. I'm the current pastor at Grace United Methodist Church in Hastings and the former pastor here, right here. And about 3 years ago, while I was still the pastor here, I got pulled over while driving down Main Street. Now, if I'm honest, it was not the first or the last time I would get pulled over. Speed limits! But it was unexpected, right? I had been working far too late getting set up for a first kids club, and I was just tired. I wanted to get home, and I forgot I had a headlight out. Oh, yeah. Oh, y'all know. I hear that, yeah. So the officer flashes his lights, boop, boop, does a little U-turn, and pulls me over. And I thought three things almost simultaneously. One, oh, this is the last thing I need right now. Two, oh, how embarrassing, the pastor getting pulled over. And three, oh, thank goodness it's so late at night. At least Carol and all the church ladies with police scanners are in bed. Now, in that moment, I could have used a sense of peace and calm, the kind the Apostle Paul wrote about in his fourth chapter to the church in the book of Philippians. Do not worry about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. the kind of peace that Christ himself spoke about in the Gospel of John. My peace I leave to you, my peace I give you. The kind that author Sarah Young writes about in her daily devotional, Jesus Calling. For April 18th, the devotional on April 18th that starts, "Peace is my continual gift to you." April 18th. See, "Peace is my continual gift to you" is how the last devotional that Carol read began. Peace is my continual gift to you. And the devotional continues as the author writes about peace flowing into us day by day and moment by moment from the throne of grace. Right, and that beautiful imagery struck me and makes me think of Carol. Right, of course, it's the last devotional she read, right? How powerful, how grace-filled it was for her to read that on her last day here on earth, and how it reflects her passing, peace-filled in her sleep, in her own home. But even more than those things, it makes me think of Carol and how she poured out for others. Just as God's grace and love poured into her, Carol poured it right back out into the world. Carol, who always took the high road and wanted to set a good example for her girls. Carol, who passed along what the family calls the Polish K gene to her girls who have a tendency to trip, stumble, or say the wrong thing at times, just like their mom, yeah. Carol, who managed to wrap being a stubborn firecracker in a package of love, laughter, joy, and humor. Carol, who was never bitter or argumentative, but if you teased her or gave her grief, she could definitely pour it back out and give as good as she got. Independent Carol, who had almost an entire town keeping an eye out on her, even as she spent her time reaching out, sending cards, making phone calls, visiting shut-ins, and checking on other people. I'd always know it was her driving around town, besides her license plate. If I saw a big white car with a little head poking over top, it would always bring a smile to my face. Right, less than a year ago, she was still changing the marquee, right, the sign outside of the church every month or so. Now, when she transferred it over to the youth and I did it for the first time, it took 5 of us almost an hour. And I just kept thinking, how did she do this? But that's just who she was. And I haven't told anyone this story. But sure, why not? Before I moved, I had to make some adjustments to that sign, right? Like I forget why, right? Something happened and I just needed to adjust a couple things. And it was kind of a breezy day. Now, if Carol told me anything about that marquee, it was, do not change the sign on a windy day. Yep. I quickly learned why, as the letters from the 3 words I wanted to change, whoosh, just blew off of there's a little opening in between the sign and the concrete, and it's all over the parking lot and the street. Those letters were aerodynamic, and I spent 20 minutes searching for them in the parking lot thinking, I should have listened to Carol. And if we as people ran on heart and determination alone, Carol would have outlived us all. Even in her final earthly moments, Carol was pouring out love as she had fallen asleep with a text typed into her phone telling her girls that she was going to sleep in, but ending it with, I love you forever. But we do not run on heart and determination alone. And while her mind and spirit never gave out, her body did. And the scripture Pastor Spencer read from Ecclesiastes teaches us that everything has a season, and to everything there is a time for a matter under heaven. See, Carol had her time on earth, and she lived it well. Ord, here, this place, is where she needed to be. And she spent her time laughing and loving, owning a bunny suit, choosing the unpaved paths of life, and making the most of her earthly season with us. And now it is time for us to go through seasons. Seasons of grief and sorrow, and laughter and joy. So I invite you to lean into this day. Lean into this day of memories and celebration and love. Because even though you may have had, a season of tears right back in April and more raw grief, it will pop up again on anniversaries, the first Christmas, birthdays, and that's okay. But lean into today and let it help you in the difficult seasons to come. Lean into today and know that we are a people of hope, of resurrection, and Easter people. Lean into today and take into tomorrow the laughter, the memories, the love, her peaceful passing, and the joy of a life well lived. And into tomorrow, may we also carry into the world the other part of her K gene. Not so much the part that gives you the magical ability to lose the phone you're actually talking on. True story, yeah. But the part of Carol's genes that looked out for others. The part of her genes that made friends everywhere and never knew a stranger. In all the seasons and future days of our life, may we live as she did, a life of outpouring love. Amen.
We're up here for moral support. When I was trying to think of what I was going to say today, and the words were not coming to me, but I just stopped and said, okay, what am I feeling right now? And let's put those down on paper. The first thing that I was feeling was pride. Proud that Carol, our mom, was our mom. She was our role model, our rock, our anchor. She put her entire being into raising us girls, and she took that role very seriously. I was proud that she was incredibly strong, and she never gave up once she put her mind to something. She'd had obstacles and challenges in her life, but she always bounced back. And I found a quote that I thought kind of summed up her strength. It's amazing how strong you can be when you have no choice. I also felt happy that we have so many wonderful, funny, crazy memories of Mom. As the three of us girls were, after her passing, were sorting through a lifetime of mementos, files, and belongings, we had just as many laughs and giggles as we did tears as we thought of different memories. One of the quotes that we've included in today's celebration, it's hard to forget someone who gave you so much to remember. And I was also happy that the four of us girls and Mom, had such a close relationship. Whenever we were together and saying goodbyes at the end of the visit, or whether we were on the phone and ending the call, we always ended it with, "I'll love you forever." I also was grateful that we had Mom in our lives for as many years as we did. Many people don't get to have their moms around as long as we did. Grateful that she was able to live independently in her home until she passed. Grateful that her mind was sharp as a tack until the end, even though her legs were giving out. And grateful that she was there for us girls and our husbands, Jim, Kirk, and Mike. Every step of the way, she was our biggest fan. So many of the things that Mom taught us were unspoken. She just taught us by example. She taught us to always take the high road. First, it's far less crowded. And second, you'll always feel better about yourself. She taught us to keep our priorities straight: family, faith, friends, and community. And she taught us to give back to others. She had a quote tucked in one of her important folders that we found: do all the good you can in all the places you can to all the people you can. And she had such an impact on our lives, but she still managed to have time and energy for her community, which she loved. We girls all often joked that we needed to get an ankle monitor for her so we could keep track of her, because she was always going and doing and was more active than any of us were. So we needed to keep track of her. Even after she slowed down and needed the aid of a walker, she was still going and doing. Throughout her life, whether she was working at her 8-to-5 job or involved in volunteer committee projects, she was always generous, supportive, and involved. She and our dad, Carrie, were owners of the Ord Quiz for over 35 years, where Mom was society editor and wrote her weekly column, Carol's Corner. She learned to write and report on the job. She had no college education for that, but she learned on the job and she loved it. She loved that the quiz served as a historian of the community. They, recorded weddings, deaths, high school sports, events, and local news. Right after Mom died, we found her last writing project. She had written her own obituary, placed where we would find it. She was society editor to the end. She was proud of working for many years on Project in the Park as a volunteer coordinator, the group that welcomes campers to the Ord City Park. She was proud of working at Secondhand Rose, the thrift store in Ord that's operated by the Valley County Health System Auxiliary, with the proceeds from the store going to purchase equipment for the hospital. And she was proud that in 2012 she received lifetime member status in the Ord Chamber of Commerce. She was active in so many different organizations and committees: the Ord High School Alumni Committee, United Methodist Church and United Methodist Women, Business and Professional Women and Ord Professional Women, VFW Auxiliary. And for many years, when she and Dad owned the quiz, they called in the Valley County election results to the Associated Press late at night. She seemed to know everyone in Ord. And as kids, it would drive us crazy because we'd be waiting in the car, and she'd be, networking. And we couldn't really figure out what the big deal was. But as we grew older, we saw what a positive influence she had on so many people and how important that was. A tradition that we had, that Mom started for us girls back when we were in high school, was a Christmas Secret Santa. And Mom would, ahead of Christmas time, she'd think of a family in need or a family that was down on their luck. Maybe it was an older person who was all alone at Christmas and didn't have any family around. So she'd come up with someone that Christmas for us, and us three girls and Mom would put together a Secret Santa box. Might have scarves and gloves, candy, and if it was for a family, toys, books, games. So before we'd head to the Christmas Eve church service, we'd all get in the car, we'd go to that family's house. One of us would run up to the door and ring the doorbell and then run very fast back to the car. And we had fun doing it. We felt good that we were giving something to someone. And as far as we know, no one ever knew that we were the Christmas Secret Santa. And then several years ago, Mom wanted to get an Easter rabbit costume. So Dad ordered one for her, a very nice one. It was a pink Easter bunny suit, and she loved at Easter surprising kids in Ord with Easter treats. She did that for many years until she couldn't get around too much, and then we tried to encourage her not to, because we didn't want the Easter bunny to fall. But one thing that we thought... One thing that was very smart, actually, but we got a big kick out of it, was before she dressed up in her bunny suit, at least the first time, she let the sheriff know in town who it was, because she didn't want to be stopped by one of the police officers thinking it was some, weirdo from out of town that was enticing kids. And that's not how she wanted to make the news in the paper. So she did that. I mean, she did that. We just, anyway. So we just would like everyone to cherish the memories you have of Mom. Honor her memory by doing good for others in your community. That's how she lived her life, and what a great way to honor her.
So as Susan said, Mom was an incredible role model for us, and she had a favorite saying. It was live, laugh, and love. So if we went to any craft things or anything and it was real popular for a few years, she had everything, whether it was a coffee mug or something on the wall hanging, but she loved that. So I'm going to focus a little bit on that because it really reflects how Mom lived her life. She lived it each day to the fullest and made the most of everything. She loved holidays, and she loved birthdays, okay? Even though she was pretty secretive about her age. I know when Dad passed and she got the marker for Dad in the cemetery, she refused to put her age on there at the time, and she said, they're just gonna have to wait until it's my day before they find out how old I am. So she was, pretty secretive about that, but she did love holidays. And we had lots of traditions and everything. Mom loved to bake kolaches, and we loved for her to bake kolaches. And there never seemed to be enough kolaches when we were all together. So we kind of had this little war on kolaches as to who could get the most. She had a tradition on Christmas Eve that she would have one, for Christmas Eve dinner after church, she would have one kolache in the basket at the table for each person at the table. So there was only enough for everybody. And the tradition was that she would hide an almond in this kolache. And the person that got the almond had the good luck for the year. So it was like a big deal. I mean, we were like, who's gonna get the almond? Who's gonna get the almond? So one year, not that long ago, we had come home from New Mexico just a little earlier to help out, and Mom and I were busy doing this, that, and the other, getting ready for Christmas Eve, waiting for everyone else to get there. And my husband, Kirk, kind of roamed through the kitchen and just happened to see some kolaches setting on the table. So he thought, this is my chance. He grabbed the kolache and he ran to the basement family room to eat the kolache without letting anybody know. Well, guess what was in the kolache that he took? It was the almond that was for Christmas Eve. It was really good. And he came running into the next room where I was, and he was in a panic. Mom was small in stature, but she could give it back, when she needed to give back, and we were always wanting to please him and everything. What am I gonna do? I ate the kolache with the almond. I said, hey, you ate the kolache. You're going to tell Mom, Anyway, he went upstairs to tell Mom about the kolache, and sure enough, she laughed and she just thought it was the funniest thing. But she did give him a hard time for quite a while about it, and he didn't get off really easy. But that night at the Christmas Eve table, we said, well, Kirk, you already had your almond. You're the last person that gets the kolache. We're going to pass that basket around, and you're going to get the kolache. Well, guess what? Last kolache had the almond in it. So Kirk got the almond twice that year. And the point of the story is that my husband isn't afraid of very much at all, but my gosh, he was afraid to tell Mom that he had taken the almond off the plate. So that was quite a laugh, and she got a lot of years out of that. So anyway, Mom loved to shop, okay? She loved we call it power shopping. And it wasn't so much about the quality of what you bought, it was about that hunt and finding that good sale. So as young girls, when we would go shopping, we'd always get really excited, because we all love to do it. And the first thing when we'd get where we were going is we had to patiently wait for Mom to put lipstick on when she got, before we could go shopping. Like this is part of the ritual or something where you have to have lipstick on to go shopping, but we would patiently wait. And we would go in and we would do our shopping and this, that, and the other. But Dad didn't have the same passion around shopping that we did, okay? So the second thing that was pretty traditional is we would get home from shopping and Mom would say, let's just leave that stuff in the trunk for right now, okay? So we'd leave the stuff in the trunk, and then later on we'd go out and get our little packages and stuff, and down the road Dad had noticed something. He says, is that a new outfit or something? We'd go, this old thing? We got it on sale, So it's a habit that I have continued to do that kind of drives my husband nuts right now. But it's because of Mom, and she taught us well. So Mom lived each day to the fullest, and she loved making memories. She enjoyed making them. She enjoyed looking to the future. She enjoyed reliving memories and things. But she did make the most of each and every day, and it was very, very special. The second thing she was so generous about was laughter, and I just happened to note the notes that I have are on a little thing that says laugh on them, and this was from Mom's house, so it was very appropriate. But laughter. She had an amazing sense of humor, a wonderful smile, and she just was so generous in sharing that laughter. And I know as she got older especially, she would tell us, she said, wrinkles aren't so bad as long as they're caused by laughter, They're laugh lines, they're not wrinkles. And so we kind of embrace that, and the older we get, the more I'm thinking about that. But she really was a role model when it came to laughter. We learned to laugh with people and to help, have a sense of humor in a group or with a group and in family. But more importantly, she taught us how to laugh at ourselves, which has come in very handy. We do that a lot. The caging, we talked about that already. Well, and we would get together, no matter when it was, but there would always, we would start the conversation. The longer we were together, the louder the conversation would go, and the more laughter and everything. And our husbands came to call that cackling, is what they called. And it wouldn't take too long at all before they would decide to retreat to the basement to watch TV, or to put on some headphones that were noise eliminators and plug into their iPads and everything. And Dad would always have something at the office he had to do, it seemed like, when we got together. But anyway, she certainly did bring a lot of laughter into our lives. And certainly, last but not least, was the love that she had in her heart and what she shared with us. She was such an incredible mother and parent, and that was first and foremost with her. She just loved us, and she was our role model, and because of that, she was our best friend. So that's a really gift to take and to have. I don't remember her getting mad very often at all. I'm sure she did. She had 3 daughters, I'm sorry, 3 daughters in a 4-year period, so we gave her plenty of ammunition as far as that, but I'm not sure if many of you remember the old days when we actually had a milkman that would come to the house and deliver the milk, And we were young, and I'm going to blame this on Susan because she was the oldest.
I was the youngest. I was very
But we somehow convinced the milkman that came to the door, someplace between the truck and the front door, that we were missing fudgesicles on the milk order. And he went with it, and Of course, we had to get rid of it, before the day was up because Mom had left us with the babysitter while she was at work or whatever. We were really popular in the neighborhood, but it lasted each week until about the end of the month when the bill came, and she wasn't too happy with us on that. The fudgesicles immediately were eliminated from the shopping list, and Mom may have paid the bill on that month, but we definitely paid the price. So we did learn our lesson there. There was another incident where we were older, and she had always had things ready, and there was a casserole in the refrigerator that she had left for Shannon and I before we went to a game, and we took the cold casserole out of the refrigerator. They didn't make Pyrex glass, I guess, back then, because we took this cold casserole out of the refrigerator, put it on the stove, and it proceeded to explode on the ceiling. So we've got tuna noodles all over the ceiling. She wasn't home, and we were able to kind of, clean up the mess certainly before she found out about it. But her only worry was that we weren't, hurt. And so, again, she never really got too mad. She always made lemonade out of lemons, and that was another one of her favorite sayings. Even the Christmas Eve when I was helping out so much, and I went down to light the fireplace, and I forgot to open the damper. And about 20 minutes later, the smoke starts coming up from the basement. She had reminded me. And now that I think about it, the common denominator here is that I was always involved in these little things. So maybe we better move on. Everything was equal. Mom was very careful. If she had a favorite daughter, we never knew about it, and she never let on. I mean, it was so equal that when she bought presents for us, and our husbands, that if they didn't all match the same price, then there was either a little envelope on the tree with some money in it or a little card on the gift that made it right. So she was always really, really equal on everything. She loved us to call her when we were away from home, and certainly in our adult years. And she said, now always leave a message. Don't just call, and if I don't answer. So she had a voicemail saved on the recordings for each one of us girls and our husbands that she could listen to when she wanted to. But those were the rules, always leave a message, so we always did. Mom didn't get, as Susan mentioned, she didn't have the opportunity to go to college, but her dream was that all of us girls would go to college. And she wanted us to all get our education and our degree. And there were only two stipulations, and that was good grades, and we had to wait to get married until we were out of school. But she had 3 girls in college at the same time, and I'm sure there were tough times, but again, she never let on, and she was always really proud. So she lived, she laughed, and she loved beyond her years, which we're very fortunate. And there's a saying, be the things you love most about the people who are gone. She's everything I try to be every day, and I miss her.
Okay, what's wrong with this picture? We were up here to give moral support. No, go sit down. Go sit down.
No, we're gonna stand. We're gonna stand. No, we're standing.
I'm going, really?
Okay. We're standing.
All right.
And I'm gonna read it along and make sure you say it just right.
Yeah, well, okay. Anyway, our mom was a people person. She loved people. Well, everyone's mentioned that. She loved people. She loved talking to them. She loved listening to them. She loved connecting with them. And most of all, she liked helping them. And maybe that's part of the reason why being the society editor was kind of a natural fit for her. But she just simply loved people. And years ago, our family went to a funeral visitation. The plan was, we all wanted to go together. We were going to pay our respects. We were going to visit just a little bit. And then we were going to quietly leave. So we all got there and we paid our respects and we visited, and we kids and our husbands start kind of congregating by the front door of the funeral home. No mom. We waited. And we waited. And then we waited a little longer. And finally, here comes Mom with a big smile on her face. And we're kind of rolling our eyes. But we get out in the car. And she starts immediately saying, oh, I saw so-and-so. I visited with so-and-so. We had such a good visit. I hadn't seen him for so long. And I don't remember which one of our husbands said, Carol, it was a funeral visitation. It was not a mixer. And that line stuck because I don't know how many times over the years would say, Mom, it's not a mixer. You just need to get in, do your thing, and get out. But life was a mixer for Mom. The three things I want to touch on with Mom are her faith, her family, and her friends. Mom was a woman of faith. This church, her church family, her church activities were so important to her. And they were just a very big part of her life. And she led by example. She always told us that no matter how bad things got, how much pain you were in, there was always someone who was worse off than you were. And so remember that, because there was just always someone worse off than you were. And she really lived by that, and she tried to show her faith in what she did. Years ago, one time, I was going through a stressful time with my job, you know, how you think that's the worst thing on earth, and I was talking to Mom on the phone, and we were talking about it, and I said, you know, Mom, everything turned out great. I was really lucky this time. And she said, you weren't lucky, you were blessed. Mom didn't believe in luck. She believed in blessings. Thank you. And then when Mom finally decided to have her knee surgery done, you want to take my notes for me? No. When she had her knee surgery done, one of the things the doctor said was, well, now, Carol, you won't be able to kneel anymore on your knees. She said, how am I going to say my prayers every night? She said, I have to kneel. And he said, no, you're not going to kneel. You're going to have to say them without kneeling. Well, she adapted, and she was fine. So the second part is family. And as the girls have mentioned, Mom thought family was so important. And she taught that to us. She allowed each of us to make mistakes. She allowed us to stumble and fall, literally fall. We all did that. She didn't try to fix things for us, but she was always there. She was always supportive, and she was always our biggest cheerleader. We were lucky to have what we called our girl bonding time every year. It didn't matter if it was a short road trip to Lincoln, if it was a big road trip to Dallas or New Mexico where Sherry was, or whether it was a weekend coming to Ord, spending time doing yard work, laughing, visiting, eating, and visiting all the local favorite spots. Mom was in seventh heaven when we girls were all together on bonding time, and we have a lot of wonderful memories of that. I have to mention her relationship with her 3 son-in-laws. I think she was glad she didn't have 8 son-in-laws, because 3 of them kept her pretty busy, but that's okay. She was so proud of all of them, and they gave her a hard time. Mom would smile and she'd go, I don't think my friends' son-in-laws talk to them like you talk to me. And then she'd turn around and she would give them some sarcasm right back, and that's what they loved. They waited for it. They weren't sure what Carol was going to say, but she always had a comeback. So I have to share a little story about each one of them. Susan's husband, Jim, many years ago came to, do you want to stand up and take a bow? No, okay. Came home to paint Mom's house for her. Jim did a lot of painting when he was going to college. That's how he earned money. And Jim is the most meticulous painter I have ever met. So he came home to help Mom and to spend a few days. And so the first day he's out there, he's got everything set up. He is ready to start his job. Here comes Mom. I'm peeking around the corner. Do you need anything? Do you have everything you need? Do you need a drink? Can I bring you something cool? Now, in a little bit, we'll have snacks inside, so make sure you take a break. Or maybe she had a suggestion of how he should do it. You know, she was just, as Jim would say, hovering. Yeah. Well, in his very nice, gentle, yet very sarcastic way, the next time she came out, he said, you know, Carol, if you go inside and work on your to-do list and let me get this done, by the end of the day, we are both going to feel like we've accomplished a lot. And after that, she didn't come out as much, did she? She still always had a snack for him or whatever, but she did get the message. So Mom loved to hug her. Then there's Sherry's husband, Kirk. Kirk's family is originally from Burwell. His grandmother, his dad, his uncle all lived in Burwell. And so as a child, Kirk would come back to Burwell and spend summers. So he knew a lot of people in Burwell. Well, Mom knew a lot of people in Burwell. And these two would get started in their discussions. A name would come up with Burwell ties, and one of them would start in, well, they married so-and-so, and they lived over on such and such a block, and they worked at so-and-so, and these two would get into an argument. They sounded like an old married couple. Because Mom knew that her information was correct, and Kirk knew that his information was correct. It was better to just leave the room when they started their Burwell stories, because truly, it was going to go for a long time. And then there's my husband, Mike. Mike's mom always made sauerkraut and potato dumplings for family gatherings. And boy, she could make good potato dumplings. One year at Thanksgiving time, Mom decided she was going to surprise Mike and make him sauerkraut and potato dumplings. Well, you don't just make potato dumplings. You got to kind of know what you're doing. But anyway, Mom was so excited. And so she started experimenting with recipes, and she called some of her friends that she knew made good potato dumplings, and oh, she practiced. She practiced those potato dumplings. And Thanksgiving gets there, and she puts them out on the table, and she was so proud, and they did. They looked really good. They were probably the heaviest potato dumplings ever made. They were heavy. They looked good, though. And we got done eating. Mike ate his share because he knew she had worked really hard. And we got done with that meal, and Mike leaned over to Mom and patted her arm, and he said, Carol, thank you for making those. But you don't ever have to make potato dumplings for me again. Now, some people would have been very offended, or their feelings would have been hurt, and Mom said, oh, thank heavens. She said that was something I never wanted to do again. But anyway, they had that understanding, as each of the guys had an understanding with Mom, and she loved them all dearly. And I know they're going to miss her as much as we are. Then I need to talk about Mom's friends. And as Susan alluded, Mom had friends of every age. I see little Keely back there. Keely was one of Mom's special friends. Mom had friends that were 6 and 7 years old, and she had friends that were older than she was. But she knew that friends were so very important. One thing I learned from Mom was you never drive by a child's lemonade stand or Kool-Aid stand without stopping. Now, she'd come down to Lincoln and visit me, and there's a lot of Kool-Aid stands in Lincoln. And I remember one day we were doing garage sales, and I don't even know how many lemonade stands we stopped at, but she said, you always stop and you always pay more than what they're asking, because she felt it was important to build up their confidence and make them feel special too. So I still always stop at lemonade stands. Again, Susan mentioned Mom's busy social calendar. We knew that if it was the first Friday of the month, it was pitch night at the club. Or if it was the third Thursday of the month, it was Thirsty Thursday at Scratchtown Brewery. Or if there was a special event at the Golden Husk, or if she was volunteering, she loved to be busy. And we knew that if we were going to come to Ord for a weekend, you kind of needed to check before you came home. We never wanted her to give up anything that she was going to do, but we also wanted to see her when we came, and so we'd make sure that it was a weekend when maybe she wasn't booked quite so busy, but she loved being busy. And then I have to mention a group of ladies. Most of them are here today. Mom had a birthday group. Now this was a group of ladies that have been together longer than I've been alive. Let's see, I'm going to turn 29, so they've, oh, no. Wrong, okay. This group of ladies have known each other for more than 60 years. never missed a birthday. And in fact, in these last several years, they started, if there wasn't a birthday, a month where there was a birthday, they would get together anyway, because surely there was something they needed to visit about. And just the best group of ladies ever, and they've been a part of our lives forever. Now, 2 of them have moved away. Luann and Barb have moved away, although Barb's back today. 2 of them have passed on, Addie and Dolores, and now Mom's joining their birthday group in heaven. And then there's 5 other ladies that are here. Marlene, Marilis, Peg, Rita, and Sally. Now, Mom had a lot of special friends, and I don't want to leave out anyone, but you ladies are the best. Thank you for always being there for Mom and for us. And then I have to, boy, this is the worst part. I have to talk about our neighbors, Mom's neighbors. We always had a special neighborhood because Mom lived right next door to Parkview Village, so we had a lot of neighbors. And over the years, they would come and go from Parkview Village. There were always some real special ones. And Mom loved baking for them and taking things to them, and she loved to leave Easter baskets for them. The Saturday night before Easter, after it was dark, we'd have to go deliver these Easter baskets. It's kind of funny, as the years went on, these people stayed up later and later waiting for their Easter baskets, but we always got them to her. And she loved to brighten people's lives. But then she had some neighbors that were truly guardian angels. And not only could Mom not have made it without them, but these past few months, I don't think we could have made it without them. And I'm going to just name them. Craig and Amy Haggerty and their son Garrett live across the street forever. Amy's mom, Bethine, and her dad, Gary Piter. And then there's Mike and Crystal Bechtold, and their boys, Brant and Brooks. And Brooks' wife, Brianna, is here today too. They were always looking out for Mom. And I hope we never took advantage of that, but we knew that if Mom needed something, she could ask them. And most of the time, she didn't have to ask. They were just watching out for her. And we appreciate that from all of you. I hope you know that.
And you probably have some good stories to tell.
Oh, boy. Yeah, Mom gave them a lot of ammunition for stories, too. So, but they truly were guardian angels. The last months of Mom's life, she wasn't able to get out, of course, like any of us, as much as she wanted to. And the only place she would go was her physical therapy appointments up at the hospital. She loved her physical therapist. That was another group of friends. And so she'd look forward to that. But as we were going through Mom's things, we found a list of people that she had called over the last several weeks of her life. And she told me one time on the phone, she said, I can't go out and see people like I want to, but I can call them. And so I just pick a couple people each day and I call them. And there was this huge list of people she had called. And had she lived longer, I know she would have made that list a little longer because she had a lot more people she wanted to call also. One more little story popped into my mind. As I had said, life was a mixer for Mom. A couple years ago, we finally, well, we didn't talk her into getting the Lifeline, but she agreed to get one so that she could be independent. And she was so worried she was going to bump that Lifeline and would say, Mom, it's okay if you do. So I called her one day to talk to her, and she said, well, it happened today. I reached across the table to get something, I bumped my Lifeline. But I had the nicest visit with this young man who called to make sure I was okay. And I thought, life is a mixer, Mom. It truly is. She never missed an opportunity to meet someone new. And I will just close my part of the talk today with one of my favorite sayings. It's a Native American blessing. And it says, on the day you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way that when you die, the world will cry and you will rejoice. And I know she's rejoicing. And thank you for being here. We miss you, Mom.
loving might be a mistake, but it's worth making. Don't let some helping heart leave you bitter. When you come close to selling out, reconsider. Give the heavens above more than just a passing glance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you do.
There's a wheel in constant motion.
I hope you dance.
Alone.
I hope you dance.
Wants to look back on their years and
I
wonder
hope you
where those
dance.
years have gone.
I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance.
There's a wheel in constant motion.
I hope you dance. I hope you dance.
Wants to look back on their years and wonder
I hope
where
you
years
dance.
have gone. Tell me who wants to look back on their years and wonder where those years have
Okay, we're going to invite people, if you have any stories, church-appropriate stories of Mom that you'd like to share today, would love to have you come forward. The rest of them will be shared outside on the sidewalk a little later. But I wanted to start off by sharing something that Mom's brother, Fred, sent to be shared today. He lives in Las Vegas, and as Susan had mentioned, because of everything going on, he and his wife were not able to join us today. We know they're here with us, but couldn't make the trip. And so he sent a story called Pickin' on Sister Carol that he asked us to share. My name is Fred Kitkoski, younger brother of Carol. Now, some of you know him, and you know how ornery he is, but okay. Naturally, with the COVID going on, we chose not to attend the celebration. Carol and I grew up on the farm located 9 miles northeast of Ord, and also attended District Number 55 school. As we Nebraskans know, the winters can be very cold and sometimes brutal. Our mother, Mary Norman, instilled in us that we should always keep moving when the weather was cold, and not to get sleepy, as that was a sign that you were going to freeze to death. Now, I don't know to this day quite understand how she knew that, but as you know, you don't question your parents. At the time that this happened, Carol was approximately age 12, and I was age 8, and off to school we went on a cold, wintry morning. And I might add that the snow was about knee-deep. We were both really bundled up and probably resembled Ralphie's brother in the Christmas Story. We had about a mile to walk to good old District 55. And about halfway there, I told Carol I was getting tired and really sleepy. I wasn't really. She got really scared and she said, "Oh, no, Freddie, don't get sleepy. Remember what Mom said, that you're going to freeze to death." Well, at about 3/4 of the way, I told her the same thing, and she was a wreck. Needless to say, we made it to the schoolhouse, which was nice and warm from the coal-burning potbelly stove. When we got back home that night, Carol told our mother what I had said. Now, my mother was very aware of my warped sense of humor, so I got punished. But I still think it was one of my better pranks that I pulled on my favorite sister. But believe me, she got back at me many times over. My wife Connie and I have many, many good memories of and with Carol. She loved a good conversation, joking, reminiscing, and all while drinking an ice-cold Corona with a sun-kissed lime. We'll miss you, Carol. With love, Fred and Connie. And as I said, if anyone has something they'd like to share, we have a microphone set up right here. You're welcome to come up and share a memory, and would love to hear them.
I'm hoping I can do this without crying. I'm Jackie Quinn Nielsen, and I am a classmate of Sue's. We've known each other probably over 60 years. Of course, maybe Sue didn't want me to tell how old we are. But my mom was part of the birthday group, and I'm not sure I could sing. And she got a phone call the day before your mom passed, so it was very special. Anyway, I am here with a tribute from Rhonda Rogers Stratman, and she was sad she couldn't be here and asked if I would read this. And I said, I think I can do it. So this is from Rhonda. The first words that come to mind when I think of her are classy and gracious. She always greeted you with a sincere smile and then wanted to know about my family and my life. As I have known Susan since celebrating our toddler birthdays together, I'm pretty sure Carol often wondered and maybe even worried about some of our high school and college adventures. But she really enjoyed hearing about them and sharing in the fun. I remember seeing Carol at the hospital in Ord a few years ago. She was rehabbing from orthopedic surgery, but walking down the hall and greeting everyone with her smile and taking the time to visit and ask about others. You would have thought she was the volunteer greeter. I really admired her love for the town of Ord and her involvement in the community, which is evident in her wishes for memorials to the Ord Flag Pole Project. What a great tribute to think of her as you see that beautiful, huge flag flying over the pond. Their wonderful mother-daughter's relationship provided the 4 girls to travel and enjoy many trips together, and I know laughter was abundant. Susan, Sherry, and Shannon, I know you will miss your mama so much, but those cherished memories that you hold in your heart and mine will always be with you. Love, Rhonda Rogers Stratman.
Her driving, oh my, just that good old white LeSabre treated her well. She did have a few incidents with that LeSabre, and some she would rather not mention. Mom was the word on a few of them. The day when I called because she was late for her appointment, which of course she never had her damn phone on. It was always underneath the seat, shut up. So that wasn't much help. So she arrived late at the salon with a big fat lip. Well, we won't go to the rest of it, but we shared many memory stories like that. Stubborn, Carol was stubborn, maybe even more than me, which is hard. Carol was 87, I'm 40, she could drink me under the table any day. I will miss our weekly gossip sessions at the salon, always wanting to know what was new. She thought I knew everything. And one little thing I'll remember is, it's not my monkey, it's not my circus. She said that a lot. And I know she, and my little daughter, her little redhead, they had a special bond. And we still, whether it's on our bikes or on a walk, we visit her often. Okay, oh Keely, bring me my phone real fast. There's a couple of text messages that we had just in the weeks before she passed, and I just thought it's so Carol for anyone that knows her. It's her. So the one, it was on April 7th, and I was just checking in, and she said, after that, good morning. My body has absorbed so much soap and disinfectants lately that when I pee, it cleans the toilet. Which is totally Carol. And so as COVID has hit, she was not getting out. It was Easter Sunday, and I had delivered some meals to some of my ladies that cannot be out or with their families. So she says, later in the afternoon, 1:46, oh my God, lady, I'm face down in the mashed potatoes, deviled eggs, etc. And then she said, there will be stars someday on your crown. Thank you. So I just thought that peeing the toilet, that was so, yeah, right after. And then 2 days before she passed, I had taken her some potato soup and some other munchies, and so it was the last time that we had a good little visit. So as we close today, let's raise our hands and give Carol one last toast. Because we all know she liked her wine and could love to go out on the night, and so if we can all raise our hand and have cheers to our friend Carol. So, as we can't have wine, right? So cheers to Carol.
I'm Becky Sullivan, and this is very hard for me to get up in front of people, but I'm like, I'm going to do it for Carol, so bear with me.
gonna miss her phone calls, spending time with her. Um, but the thing, this is so funny. Last night I was working at the Vets Club, and there's this couple from John came in, and they were reading in the paper about the celebration of life for this Carol Leggett. And I said, yeah, she was a good friend of mine. She's like, well, was she in here? Because they said they made a special stop on Fridays for Ord. And so every, like, the last 5 years, they would be in Ord Vets Club. And Carol would come over and start talking to them. And he said it was like meeting up with an old pal. And he said, I said, that is so her, and yes, it is who we're celebrating her life tomorrow. And he even said, I don't really know the lady, but you tell her family she was a genuine gem. So that's just how it was. She knew no stranger, and I'm gonna miss her so much. And that's it. So thank you.
Well, I'm Helen Cullors, and I had the privilege of working with Carol at the United Nebraska Bank. And this is a seasonal appropriate tale to tell on Carol. It was about this time of year when I was at her desk, and I was telling her about my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law. It was their second marriage. They lived at Cozad, and it was just their second year, or their second marriage. I'll get my tongue straight here. And Lorraine, the wife, wanted to pull a joke on Vernon. And it was Halloween. And so she says, hon, would you get the door? Because she says, I have to go to the bathroom. So she goes and takes all of her clothes off. This is appropriate, I think, for God will understand. Okay. She took all of her clothes off. She put her trench coat on, and she pulled the stocking over her head, went out the back door, almost hung herself on the clothesline, and went to the front door and rang the buzzer. And Vernon comes to the door, and Lorraine goes like this, trick or treat! And he was so shocked, he was just kind of stumbling backwards because he said they hadn't been married very long. What was Lorraine going to think? And Lorraine was saying, she says, didn't you recognize me, Vern? Didn't you recognize me? Okay, so I was telling that true story to Carol, and Carol says, oh, I would love to play this on Carrie. And she says, I'm going to think about it, but she says, I'm afraid he would write about it in the paper. And she says, I really don't want that kind of coverage. And I said, well, okay. And, another year went by. I really didn't think much about it. And Halloween came, and I went to work that next day, and Carol says, Helen, she says, I did it. I said, what did you do, Carol? She says, I played trick or treat on Carrie. Oh, she says, it was a blast. She says, it was worth it. She says, I did just what your brother-in-law and sister-in-law, that whole scenario. She says, Carrie was to answer the door, and she says, I went out around. She says, I had my coat on and all my other clothes off and put something over my face. And she says, I says, trick or treat. And she says, Carrie was just stunned. She says, he was just like, oh my gosh. And she says, it was worth every bit of it. And she says, I don't think he's going to put it in the paper because she says he doesn't want to let people know how shocked he was. Did she ever tell you girls about the...
speckled one of the neighbors, and when Carrie passed, we thought we'd help Carol out. I had two strapping young boys that were just getting old enough to scoop snow, and so we thought we'll help her out and scoop her snow. And so I thought, be a good dad and teach a lesson. You give something without getting anything in return. Carol hijacked that, took it away. She has so much gratitude for everything that, she was always peeking out the door, slipping them a 20 or they'd come home, Carol, give us that. The lesson went completely out the door. But then even when my wife and I took it over when they went to college, every time we were scooping her snow, she'd get out in her house coat, thank you guys, I appreciate everything you're doing. She was such a gracious person. It was amazing. She taught that lesson all the time. The second thing she taught us, we got to remember this, Crystal, is one time we had taken her some food or something. She was in the walker at this time and came across our yard, which is very bumpy and treacherous, and got to our door, rang the doorbell, and she brought back one of those disposable Tupperwares that we had meant for her to keep. But she brought it back, and so we asked her in, and we talked for a little bit, and then she said, well, I got to go. Friends and I are going out for dinner and wine and everything, which was obvious. And so we walked her back, and it took 5 minutes to get across that yard. But I told Crystal, we got to remember, when I'm as old as her, I hope I get that old. You got to live like that, man. It may take 5 minutes to get to the neighbor, but do it. It may take 5 minutes to get to that car, to get out and have some wine and dinner, but do it. So don't let me forget, Crystal. Thanks. Thank you, guys.
My name is Amy Haggerty, and I've lived across the street from Carol all my life. The very first memory I ever have of Carol and Carrie, I've always thought Carol was a fancy lady, and I always aspired to be like her as I grew up. She always had makeup on, she was dressed to the nines, no matter when you saw her. I never, ever saw Carol without makeup, ever, or dressed up. No matter what time you went over there or when you saw her, she could be out gardening, and she would be dressed up with her makeup on and her hair done. And I thought, oh my gosh. And she found out today she had never been to college, but I always thought she was so well versed. She knew everything in my eyes. And my very first memory was when I was very little, and I would go over there just unannounced all the time, just to want to see the girls or to see what they were doing. And one time the front door was locked, and nobody answered, and I was bound determined they were home. I knew they were there. I can't remember, I was pretty young. And so I thought, you know what? I bet they're in the backyard. So I went around, and I peeked around the corner, and oh my God. Carrie was, well, I didn't realize it was Carrie at the time, but he was sunbathing in the middle of the yard in his leopard skin bikini. And I remember this because as I grew older and went to the pool every day of my life, Carrie would come over and all of us kids were just flabbergasted because this man would come to the pool almost every day in his leopard skin bikini. And this is what he did. He'd come in, he'd go to the high diving board, dive off the board, make an excellent dive, make 2 laps in the pool, and he'd leave. And all the girls were just astounded that this older man in this leopard skin bikini, but I, by God, was not going to tell them I knew who he was. But then he was in the backyard, and I thought, what was going through my mind was, who is this man? And oh my God, why would Carol be associated with such a man? I could not believe it. I just thought, oh my Lord. And so I quick ran home, and I don't think I went back for several days. the shrink because I always felt so good when I left her house. I will miss her kolaches. My husband and I, she always made kolaches and brought them over, and that was one thing growing up my grandma always did. I, to this day, cannot make a kolache to save my life. Wish I could, probably if I practiced, but probably won't be as good as Carol's. She always treated my son like he was her grandson. No matter what, she always wanted to know what he was doing, when he was doing it. She would show up for music programs when he was in high school, and we didn't even tell her or ask her to come. That was one thing I always felt bad about was Carol had so much love, but I don't really know if she was a grandma. She never talked about grandchildren, but that was one thing I always felt bad about, was that she was never a grandma to actual grandchildren. I always thought she would have been the best, because she always treated my son like he was. I will always remember Carol. It will never be anyone's house across the street. It will always be Carol and Carrie's. And for that, I thank her.
All right, we have so many great memories of Mom, and thank you all for sharing. I want to thank everyone for coming today. Mom always kind of joked around, and she always said we should live our life like the best we can. So, oh, we're not done yet? Oh, we're not done yet. Okay, all right, we're going to do one more.
I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in here that has not had a glass of wine with Carol. Could be because probably my connection with her is not that I've known her my whole life. I've known these girls my whole life. And one of the nicest, most recent connections is the 20 years that I have been the MYF teacher in this church. And the special lady that she was to the youth in this church. I see Megan back there, who I've not seen for a while. I don't know if any of the other kids are here or not, but I've told the girls how good she was to the kids in this church, that she loved them and was at pretty much anything we did for a lot of years. There's also some other women sitting back there in her group of church women that support the kids in this church. And so I just want everybody to know that it's not just, it's everybody that the woman loved. And for that I will be forever grateful. I'll miss her. I don't know if there's any great stories. I just know that her and that bunch of ladies was just everywhere those kids were at. And we're truly grateful for that. And I will miss your mom. I miss seeing her in church. And Amy is right. It will always be Carrie and Carol's house, no matter who lives there. So thank you for sharing your mom with us.
Is there anyone else that wants to share? I don't want to cut anyone off. We could tell stories all afternoon about Mama. But we thank everyone for being here. Mom lived her life to the fullest each day, as I said before, and she always told us, live a good life, and then those pews will be full when they come to your service. And despite COVID, she was, it's too bad because Mom would have filled this church tenfold, but we are so glad for all those friends and family that could come today. I want to thank Pastor Spencer and Pastor Stephanie again for sharing in the celebration. I want to give a special thank you to my wonderful granddaughter, Shiloh Roth, who did the videos, the music videos. She's amazing. She was a lifesaver, and I love you, Shiloh. Thank you so much. We had fun doing and prepping for this celebration. It was actually, as much as we were sad at the time Mom passed that we couldn't have a service for her, the process of going through Mom's things and taking care of things, gave my two sisters and I an opportunity to really, absorb and see all that Mom saved and see all that she did. And we had a lot of people that told a lot of stories along the way. So I want to thank everyone for coming, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We're just going to play some music a little bit. There's still memory boards in the back and everything. So if anyone didn't get the chance before to spend a little time back there, there's things that you can take with you as well. Things that remind you of. You're not alone. Take your time, and thank you again for coming.
I will stand by you. I will help you through when you've done all you can do and you can't cope. I will dry your eyes. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I've heard of once in a lullaby.